Well, good morning, everyone. What a fantastic place to have a conference about regional development. You see it all here before you, and we're so lucky to live in this region. And when you hear the words from George Wally about the tradition that goes back 40,000 years and how we've got a chance to keep going with all the wonderful things that were so evident in Noongar culture, we're indeed fortunate. I too would like to acknowledge Colin Holt, Paul Fitzpatrick, all the people who represent wonderful organisations and who are keen to help this region reach its potential. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you today. When I accepted the invitation to do that, very much a resident in the region now, but I wanted to take the opportunity because it's fantastic to be able to give voice to, I suppose, the many hundreds of people that I've had the opportunity to talk with over the years, and maybe try and add a little bit to that jigsaw. There's another large bloke that came from Queensland. His name was Big Kev, and he had I've got dual citizenship, I'm from Queensland as well, but he had a great catch cry: "I'm excited." When Kev came on the screen, "I'm excited." I forget what he was excited about, but he was excited. And so am I. I'm excited about the talent, the human and other resources in this region, and the special attributes that this region has. And as Colin said, all the regions have their special attributes. But I guess what we're going to focus on today are the very special attributes of the Peel region. Look, there's a lot of data about the region, and with a background 30 years in social work, I understand many of the challenges that people face. And reports on the region will highlight many of those challenges that don't look too flash. And that's why we are right up there on national statistics of areas of disadvantage, because many, many people in our community really experience severe hardship, homelessness, poverty, intergenerational disadvantage, and as George pointed out, for Aboriginal people, the long history of the disparity that they experience. But your presence here today really tells another story. And as I meet with the people from the region in various forums, I'm always left with a sense that what we do have here is a great sense of commitment to work together to make things better. Look, one of the things this region has an abundance of are plans. We've got more plans than you've had hot dinners. Every organisation in the region's been doing plans for a long, long time, and the plans are important. I'm not knocking them, but we've got a lot of them. But the blueprint that Melissa's talked about today, that's the call to action. That's the call to put all that thinking, all that data, all that strategy, let's now get something done. Look, why would we bother to go around to regions? Why would we bother to be here today to develop stronger economic development in regions? I too would like to acknowledge the presence of Hendy Cowan, who I personally have found to have really set us thinking in a way of sustainability about regions, and I think this state owes him a huge debt of gratitude. But why do we do all these plans? Why do government departments, not-for-profits, local governments, what do they achieve? And it was put to me by Rhys Williams, the CEO of Community Solutions, that really what it is all about, and Colin touched on this, it's to reduce inequality. And I guess what I want to reflect on today is not just something that's a feel-good from an old social worker, but something that really now has hard evidence to suggest that if we don't reduce that inequality, we will pay a very great price. And I'd refer you to the work of Professor Richard Wilkinson, social epidemiologist at University College London and co-founder of Equity Trust. Now, his research shows that in developed countries, the greater the inequality, the greater the impact in a negative way is on child health, well-being, serious mental health problems, greater domestic violence, more people in prison, more children dropping out of school. Is this sounding familiar? Basically, describing many of the changes in this region. So correcting that inequality, I believe, is one of the visions that we need to have to underpin putting into practice the blueprint that lays out so many fantastic actions we can take. But Professor Wilkinson's research shows that in these communities, in communities where there is less equality, all those indicators go in a completely different direction. And what does that mean? That means there is not the financial cost to communities, both economically and socially. And wouldn't we like to have some of that? And that research also shows that these things get done much better as those communities get richer. And then they actually work much better to close the gap. That's really so important in this discussion. So our effective actions need to develop a more cohesive and prosperous region, and that has to be about the people. Because you know and I know, we live in a community, not an economy. So such an important document as the blueprint, that's going to have, hopefully, something that will say the homelessness strategy we're developing in this region is an essential part of economic development. It's not here to the side as social and different. It's part of the whole economy of this region. The Peel Community Development Group, which is a peak body that works closely with the WA Council of Social Services, and Helen Creed is here today representing them, we're working with the Homelessness Networking Group, which is all the people in this region who really understand the seriousness and the complexity of the problem and who want to bring themselves together, bring the research, bring the stakeholders together so that we can actually do something about it. And so that we will be submitting that plan for affordable housing and homelessness and an action plan for all those that want to be involved to make sure that we do have more crisis housing, more traditional housing, because without that, we will fail in this economic development. Very hard to keep a job if you haven't got somewhere to live. The other thing that the blueprint highlights, and that I think has a fundamental theme of this region, is how we protect and how we utilise the natural beauty. You only have to look out from this venue, but right through the region, you've got waterways, rivers, the coast, the scarp. And over the years, again, there have been many, many reports done that quantify the economic benefit to the region of these natural resources. So I make no apology for being a tree hugger, but tree huggers got to understand that this has an intrinsic economic value. There was a great report done called the Economic and Recreational Use of the Waterways, the EconRec report that it became known as, and that outlined the value of these waterways to the region. Now, we don't need it to be used as a doorstop. What it did was gather up all the reports that had been written previously, and it summarised all those recommendations. So we've got the research, we've got the plans, we've got the evidence to show that if we do these things, we will prosper greater as a region. And it summarised that we could do a lot more to capitalise on this fantastic resource we've got in terms of the natural beauty while we still protect it. And one thing that stuck with me was, one of the things they talked about was that there was a huge dollar spend for people who came here for bird tourism. Now, that might not be your top of mind as you sit here this morning, bird tourism, but let me tell you, the people that come here, they spend far more money than the average tourist. Why is that? Well, this is home to the Ramsar-listed wetlands. Our government has an international treaty obligation to protect these areas. Well, why on earth would they want to do that? Well, it is part of the most ancient flyway in the world. These birds come from the northern hemisphere through a fairly tortuous route, land in our wetlands, and people come from all over the world, because you can go down to the Koodanup foreshore and you can see birds that have made it all the way from Siberia. So people who understand and appreciate this incredible feat of nature, they are just rapt that they can go down to a local foreshore or to some of the other beautiful viewing places in the region and have a look at this. Just to illustrate this, one of the people in our region that you may have heard something about is David Rennie, featured on Australian Story recently. Now, David has taken thousands of photographs over the years, but he took one that won the international prize. And so David has become very, very well known internationally. And he has used being recognised in that international award to try and promote the beauty of the Ramsar wetlands. And recently we hosted the National Coast to Coast Conference here in Mandurah, and David had a stall alongside the Peel Harvey Catchment Council. By the end of that week, he had done 49 radio interviews all over the eastern seaboard because people were absolutely captivated with what he'd done and the book he had produced. You tell me, where do you buy 49 interviews and that kind of publicity right across the eastern seaboard and some overseas places? But that is because of two things. One, he is showing people the beauty of the region, and two, he is passionate about that. And the other thing, I guess, that David has done successfully is that he works with one of our fantastic organisations, the Peel Harvey Catchment Council, to help educate us about what we have got here. Government reports done over the years have really highlighted the importance of the waterways. The fishing, the boating. I think we've got 6,000 boats registered in this region just for recreational use. The tourism land values, as well, and this is placed at the $1 billion mark. These are big numbers, lots of noughts. So why wouldn't we look after these natural resources, but find ways with the clever people that are here to make sure that they are working for us as part of a very vibrant regional economy. Melissa mentioned that this is a biodiversity hotspot. You know, Professor Stephen Hopper, who went to Kew Gardens after Kings Park, you know, talks about that this area is it's only I think an area in Cape Town and an area in Venezuela that has anything like the biodiversity in this region. And understanding the importance of these plants, many of these species not even named yet, we have this huge richness right on our doorstep. Our task is to be clever enough to unlock its not only its environmental potential, but its economic potential. So the protection of the natural foreshores and the adjacent bushland is just so important to our community in the long term. At the recent Coast to Coast conference, Kingsley Dixon from Kings Park said they had to spend $11 million creating a nature place in Kings Park so people in those congested capital cities, Colin, that they could come and experience nature. We don't have to spend it on building a nature thing. We've got the nature. We can show people here, come and enjoy the nature we've got. I'd refer you to the recent report by the Wentworth Group of Australian scientists that's just come out, and they've issued another blueprint, a different blueprint, for a healthy environment and a productive society. And I think if we don't understand the lessons that science is teaching us, how will we ever not only look after this area now, but for the future? The other resource we have, obviously, are the people, and Melissa also mentioned that in the blueprint presentation. We've got lots of them. We've got lots of very young people. We've got lots of very old people, and we like living here. And we've got an enormous amount of skilled migrants who have come here at the invitation of the state government, thank you, but who are now unable to get jobs. But I can point to you 40 engineers who have come here, qualified, accepted skills accepted, can speak English, and we have this absolute resource just sitting in the region waiting to be utilised. So we need to then find a way to engage people, because we can have all the plans we want, but if it's not driven by the people who live in the region, it won't happen. I'd like to acknowledge my colleague from the Peel Community Development Group, Liz Storr, who works in many communities. And she tells me that major multinational corporations, they understand the benefits of economic development and community engagement. This is an essential ingredient to our economic development. We want government to facilitate, but we want our community to take ownership and to be very, very proud of where they live. So building the capacity of people, unlocking that potential, rallying our community, giving them a sense of pride where they live, that's going to help us achieve what is set out in the blueprint. Another resource we have waiting to be harnessed is the creativity that's expressed in so many ways. This community will always be grateful to Richard Court when he was Premier for our magnificent Performing Arts Centre, not because it's a great building, but if you want living proof on how the arts and culture can have such an impact on the economic development of a region, look at the multiplier effect that centre and the fantastic growth in the arts in this community has had as a result. I think there are more people employed in the creative arts in Australia than in manufacturing. That may be a sad thing for manufacturing, but we would be naive if we did not understand the economic development that is potential through the arts. John Lambrecht and the Regional Development Australia Peel are working with the community and have developed an arts and culture plan. And if Sam Walsh could head up the Chamber for Arts in Perth, why couldn't that happen here? The economist Richard Florida has written extensively about the economic benefit of unleashing community potential. Even things like busking. People go along, you hear the music, you feel good. I like living here. This is a place I want to be. When you've got that vibrancy, that rejuvenation, that's where people want to be. But what will be the glue that holds it together? The glue will be community cohesion, because if we don't have that, then the economic development, I believe, will be fractured. Well, how are we going to do that? That, to me, is about leadership. As you know, there are courses, there are books, and I'm not going to lecture you on leadership. But what I would say, that if you had to identify one of the most crucial things is leadership. And I'll finish up by just saying, I think it is our obligation to open the pipeline, to invite people to be leaders, not only elected leaders, but also people who will say, I didn't think I could do that, but you've invited me, maybe I can. When you look at what Nelson Mandela did when he set up the Circle of Elders and understood the importance of using the leadership of people who've had life experience, but we also know that it's important to open that leadership up to the many, many young people who can have that opportunity. And Daniel Goldman in the Harvard Business Review, he talked about what I think is the most essential quality of a leader, and that is the emotional intelligence. That's what it distinguishes outstanding leaders. So it's not just about leaders in elected positions. It's about how we go about things, how we have the ability to make a difference, how we can be credible, and how we can be focused. I think allowing bright young leaders to take their place, to understand that this environment is so important to us, that engaging our community to drive all these things is just so important. So if we can focus on correcting that inequality, focusing on justice, compassion, and the power of collective action, as Mary Robinson said, they are not just nice words, but they're powerful forces. Individuals can't do it alone. Let's do it together. The connection between us, it is in each other's shadow that we flourish. And to finish with the quote from the junior mayor who helped our Mayor Vigoni open the Coast to Coast conference, he said, "It's up to us to live up to the legacy that's left to us and to leave a legacy that is worthy of future generations." I think he said it all. Thanks for the opportunity.